Here we go. Another Locked On Podcast Network crossover. Should be a good one. It's a familiar foe. Los Angeles Rams, San Francisco 49ers, Locked On Rams, Locked On 49ers crossover, getting ready for Week 15. Can the Rams finish off the 49ers? All that and more coming at you right now.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to another Locked On Podcast Network crossover. Brian Peacock and Erick Crockner here of Locked On 49ers with Travis Rogers of Locked On Rams. Excited for this one. Thursday nighter, primetime, short week, so not a lot of hype, not a lot of time to hype this thing up as we get ready for a division battle, NFC West style. Los Angeles Rams at 7-6, Niners at 6-7. And a really interesting time of year right now, Travis, as we talk about these two football teams. I do want to let everybody know that this episode of Locked On 49ers and Locked On Rams is presented by Prize Picks, as are all crossover Thursdays. Download the app right now and use code Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5 at Prize Picks. And we talked about it a little bit off the air. I said it in the intro. Can the Los Angeles Rams drop the hammer on the 49ers and effectively end their season? Because the Niners need a lot to go right. Specifically, they have to for sure beat all those NFC West teams. And I found it fascinating that both the Seahawks and the Rams, Travis, control their own destiny. So if they win out, it's going to be for the West in Week 18.
Yeah, I called the shot after they, surprisingly beat the Buffalo Bills last weekend that go ahead and pencil in the Seahawks and the Rams. Week 18 Sunday Night Football is one of those, playoff games that isn't a playoff game. The winner keeps going. The loser probably is the odd man out in that situation. It still feels like that. But, like you said, Brian, I think that the Rams coming up this week against the Niners, this is the one they got one game each against their division opponents. They got the Jets thrown in there in the middle as well. But this is the one to me that is by far the most challenging. It's a short week. It's the only one of the three that's on a road, and it's the one against the team that they've had the most trouble with in the division over the last several years. That even though San Francisco isn't having the year that I think Rams fans expected them to have, I'm sure you guys have, know more about that than I do, but this is still the San Francisco 49ers. This is still the team that every time the Rams feel like, okay, this is the time that they're really going to kind of jump on them and show that they're the better team. It hasn't really happened. They beat them early in the year, but that was kind of a come from behind, last second, pull it out of the fire kind of situation. This feels like it's set up for the Rams to have a good day, but every time you start feeling like that with this football team this year, they kind of pull the rug out from underneath you. So I think this is their biggest game of the season by far, and it's not even close.
80 combined points from these offenses last week and week 14. So some confidence probably for both these teams coming in. And for the Rams, is the biggest storyline still last week, or is it the 49ers? Because you don't have a lot of time to be like, hey, man, that game was pretty awesome. 44-42, you beat Josh Allen. Oh, wait a second. We got to get ready for another game here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's one of the rare times where maybe being on a Thursday is an advantage, and I use it in the smallest possible sense, but in that you didn't kind of get to sit around and tell yourself how great everything went, right? That, I think that the Buffalo Bills are one of the best teams in the league. Josh Allen is going to win the MVP, and seeing what I saw on Sunday, he should win the MVP. But it's immediately back to work, hearing what I heard from the people that were in the locker room and everything else, that this was okay, we got that done. And literally by the time they'd gotten back to the locker room, they were getting ready for what's coming up on Thursday. So I think that is an advantage to kind of just go right back into it, even if it is a tough opponent on a short week.
Croc, what do you think is the biggest storyline for the 49ers this week coming into week 15?
I think injuries that continues to kind of bite the 49ers in the butt. And this game that we know of, if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw Trent Williams and Mustafa are ruled out for this game. So still playing without your left tackle, that could be very hurtful to the 49ers when you have Jared Verse on the other side, who's having a terrific rookie season for the Rams. And Mustafa, a guy who's been flying around, having big hits. He's contributed to taking the ball away for the 49ers, missing him. And now a guy like Jair Brown will have to kind of get out there. So, and obviously, the 49ers just getting back Talanoa Hufanga, who replaced Jair Brown in the starting lineup. Brown now has to play again and start for the 49ers. So just a lot of moving pieces. Obviously, the injuries go on and on for the 49ers, but trying to overcome the injuries, especially with a Rams team that's coming in there kind of licking their chops. And Jared Verse, I mean, again, I mentioned him a second ago, but he has been terrific this season coming off of the edge. That should worry the 49ers a lot.
Yeah, the Verse thing, Croc, I think is a great point. We were talking about this the other day on Locked On Rams. My everydayers will remember that if you could rerun the 2024 draft and the Rams could redo it and move up to get Brock Bowers, which they were reportedly trying very hard to get done, I'm not sure they would. I'm not sure they wouldn't sit exactly where they were and take exactly the player that they got in Jared Verse. That's how good he is. As great as Bowers has been, and that's not a negative on Bowers at all. It's just that's how good Jared Verse has been. I think that there's an opportunity there for him to have a big day for all the reasons that you just said. He gets a little better week after week after week. He gets a little bit closer to having that thing where everybody in the league is talking about him. I think he's going to win the Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie, or the Rookie Defensive Player of the Year, I should say. He's been terrific. And Braden Fisk, by the way, hasn't been that much worse, right? He's been nearly as good. Those two guys coming from Florida State. The Ram defense is not a bunch of names that, people might be familiar with. There's no Aaron Donald. There's no Jalen Ramsey, the guys that, kind of popped Von Miller when they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but they got some very good guys up front. Verse, Fisk, Young, Turner, those four guys up front, they can really do some work.
I want to stay on this side of the football with the Rams defense against the 49ers offense. And it's some interesting names on the questionable side of things. For the 49ers defense, who could be back for the Niners, which could be huge. But starting with no Trent Williams, and I think it's the power aspect of Jared Verse. And you watch Jared Verse play, and he's not trying to trick anybody.
No,
like I'm going to go at through, the whole like rolling ball of butcher knives thing. Like he's coming at you and through you, trying to push you into the quarterback, trying to half man you. Speed to power. That's it. He's not trying to spin move you, trick you, do anything with technique. He's just coming right at you. And so that's how you have to battle him. And you'd feel a lot better with Trent Williams, someone you know is not going to get bullied out there. I will say that Jalen Moore's done a fine job replacing him. And it'll be interesting to watch that battle because that's huge. And obviously, whoever wins up front usually wins most football games in the NFL. And I think the 49ers had some trouble winning those matchups up front in some weeks this season, which led them to where we are right now. So no Trent Williams, not great. I want to ask you, though, since we're talking about this offense from the 49ers against the defense from the Rams, despite the newly built defensive line and having a lot of talent, and my thing with Braden Fisk, I think he's played exactly to the scouting report because he's nonstop motor, pass rusher, run defense, maybe not the stoutest interior guy. And so you could still get yards on the Rams. You can still run the ball on them up front and that front seven. I still don't understand the whole Ernest Jones linebacker thing because
neither do I, by the way, and neither do a lot of people that are calling the Rams. And I think if we had the proverbial dart in the neck of truth serum, I think they messed that one up.
Yeah, it's so weird. Let's get rid of the best player in the worst position group we have on the football team. Yeah. And right before the season starts. And then he ends up with a division rival to make it even worse, who they might battle in week 18, by the way. But so talk to me about why the Rams defense, is it just still a talent issue in the back seven? Is it somewhat the defensive line being good as pass rushers, but not as much against the run? A team putting 42 points up. Now it's better when you put 44 when the other team puts 42 points up, and you do have Josh Allen on the other side, but it's not the first time. And this Rams team's one where you're like, okay, you got Kupp, you got Nakua, Stafford, you're good again. And then next week you're like, maybe they're not that good. So I can't figure out who the Rams are.
Yeah, it's funny, Brian. It's kind of gone full circle. So coming into this season, there was the narrative on the Rams before they played a single game this year. It was, well, we know they're going to score a lot of points, but can they stop anybody? Well, fast forward through 14 weeks, we finally got to that. It took 14 or 13 games to get there, but the offense had long periods of time, stretches where they couldn't move the ball. They were terrible in the red zone. Stafford wasn't good. The conversation is Kupp washed? Is he done? Do you need to trade him? Is Puka a flash in the pan 1 year sort of guy? Hey, at least we have this defense that can get off the field when you need to right back to where we started. Last week was 42 points. but I really do think that was more of a Josh Allen thing than I do the Rams have major problems sort of thing. Now, this is a different animal. Brock Purdy is not Josh Allen, but obviously San Francisco is missing some weapons along the way. If they give up a bunch of yards and a bunch of points, then I think we're right back to, I don't know what it is. They are a little thin in the secondary. Cam Kitchens has been better of late. He's been much better in the second half of the season than he was in the first half of the season. The rest of it has kind of been what you thought, whether it's a guy like Quentin Lake, good, not great. Your corners are probably a little bit below the line. Darius Williams is your best guy. Okay, it's not the end of the world. They've been looking. They went out and have tried to upgrade some of these spots, but this is, other than their kicking game at the moment, which I'm sure I'll mention at some point today. This is the question all of a sudden that yes, Matthew Stafford is back in his bag. Sean McVay is calling a great game, and we're right back to whether or not the defense can get a stop when they need it. They have early in the season. The last week was bad, but I really do think that was more of a function of the other guy just being that good.
Well, disrespectful thinking Brock Purdy's not going to throw for 3 and rush for 3 touchdowns in this football game on Thursday night. Can't wait for it. More key matchups and what the paths to victory look like for the Rams and the 49ers Thursday next. This episode of Locked On 49ers and Locked On Rams brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL. Niners favored by 3. You want to get in on that action? You can get in on the action every single week. Tons of prop bets, not just weekly lines, season-long bets. Jared Verse, Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, action on that as well. And not to mention NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, off-season props, draft props, all of it at FanDuel. So download the app or visit FanDuel.com and join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. If you want to go to maybe the Thursday nighter, maybe last minute, you want some last minute tickets, fantastic deals on last minute tickets or any tickets to your favorite sporting event. Go see your favorite team play, concert, comedy shows, theater events, all of it at Gametime. And now Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Gametime Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, especially if you're going to a football game, a 60,000 seat stadium. Makes it a lot easier with Gametime Picks. And I mentioned those fantastic last minute deals. I've gotten last minute baseball tickets, phenomenal deals, last minute concert tickets as well. It's like, on the fence. Am I going to go see this show? I'm going to see the band the second night in a row. Well, if I can get half off face value, I'm going. And I did with Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, here we go. Locked On 49ers, Locked On Rams crossover. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker here of Locked On 49ers with Travis Rogers of Locked On Rams. And Croc, I'm going to go to you here next because talk to me about matchups. What's the key matchup to you in this game for the 49ers against the Rams?
I think we kind of just touched on one of the key matchups, and that's Jared Verse versus 49ers tackles. But yeah, I think another key matchup is going to be 49ers secondary against those two terrific receivers from the Los Angeles Rams. You got Puka Nacua, you got Cooper Kupp. They both seem to be doing a great job being on the same page with Matthew Stafford. You watched last game. I think Cooper Kupp had 95 yards. Puka Nacua had a much larger game and really sealed the game at the end when the Bills had a chance to potentially come back, but a screen out on the edge to Puka Nacua. He skips into the end zone for a touchdown. Those guys are terrific. So you got Travarius Ward. He's coming back. I thought he played well last game. You got Deommodore Lenoir. He's back after missing the game. He's out there. And, of course, you got the 49ers rookie, Ronaldo Green. But I think the big thing is going to be Ronaldo Green and Travarius Ward against Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. So that to me, that's one of the biggest matchups for the 49ers because we know the Rams, they definitely are running the ball. When they got Kyron Williams, they got Blake Corum, they'll run the rock. But it's going to be the passing game that beats the 49ers if the Rams are going to win this game. So what does that matchup look like on the outsides?
It is so frustrating. And it's on Kupp, it's on Nakua, it's on Stafford, but then the McVay factor too. And it's so frustrating watching a team's defense where you know the guy that you have to stop, and he's lined up in the slot, two-way go, and you can't stop him. It's like he's gonna throw it to Cooper Kupp right here. It's 3rd down and 7, and you cannot stop him. He gets open somewhere, and they're able to find it. And I was talking with Matt Williamson on the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Subscribe right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And we had a mailbag question: is that who's the 6th best quarterback in the NFL? And they didn't even give us the top 5. And so we went through it, and it was like, well, the 6th has to be right now Matthew Stafford. And maybe he even belongs ahead of some other guys that are in the top 5. And it seems to happen like this every single year where you're like, okay, well, there's Stafford and he's fine still, but he's getting older. And then by the end of the year, you're like, oh, you know what? Stafford's still that dude. And that's what he's doing right now. And we saw it last week too.
Yeah, it's funny. I agree with you that by the time you get to this point of the year, he's one of those guys that you do not want to see. There's not too much you can throw at him that he hasn't seen before. He's really tough, and he'll take a chance. And you know, I like that. And he's been really hot of late. He hasn't thrown an interception in the last 4 games. He's been really, really good. Here's the matchup for me that kind of goes to what you're talking about with those receivers, Croc, and what you're talking about, Brian, is the Rams last week against Buffalo did some stuff that they really haven't done much at all season long. And that was play with some 4 wide receiver sets where they put Tutu Atwell out there as well. Tutu Atwell caught the pass on that 4th down drive that ultimately right before the Nakua touchdown that kind of iced it. And it didn't go to Kupp. It didn't go to Puka. It went to Tutu. And the reason that they were able to do that, and they were able to do it a handful of times over the course of the game, is they were able to keep Matthew Stafford in one piece with just 5 guys. They didn't have to keep that tight end in. They were able to take the tight end off the field and go with a 4 wide receiver set, which allowed them to get guys in advantageous matchups, to get Demarcus Robinson on a 3rd best corner, to get Tutu Atwell on a guy that maybe can't handle that speed. There were some really advantageous matchups there, but none of that works if you don't block it up front, and they did. They kept Matthew Stafford clean all week. They didn't sack him once in that Buffalo game. So if they're, and I'm not saying you can't give up 1 sack or maybe even another one, but if you can block it up with 5 guys pretty regularly and you give Sean McVay that amount of optionality when it comes to putting it in Matthew Stafford's hands and saying, find the right matchup before the ball's even snapped, he's going to kill people. Like he's just that good of a quarterback. He's operating at that high of a level, but we've seen it when he has no time, just like every other guy that's ever played that position, he's not very good. No one is. And when he struggles, it's almost always because the Rams don't block it up. They've had the same 5 guys 3 weeks in a row now. It's the first time they've had the same 5 guys 3 weeks in a row, and I think it started to show. If they're going to get them again, I think that's a big, big thing to keep an eye on.
I can't believe you just jinxed Matthew Stafford like that. And when I hear he hasn't thrown an interception in 3 games, that just makes me think, okay, guys, don't drop it if he does throw it to you.
Here's why I'm almost positive he's going to throw one, because he's had his career high is 4 games in a row without one. He's done it 4 times. This is the 4th time. He's always thrown one in the 5th game. So I expect the streak to come to an end. I just hope we don't double up on it.
Right. Yeah. That's the key. That we've talked about this numerous times. We kind of always talk about it when we're facing Matthew Stafford, because he can do a lot. And this offense can be high powered, and they're playing at a high level. Obviously, they scored 44 points last week. You gotta pressure him into some mistakes. Mm-hmm. And when he does throw it to you, you can't Jaquaski tart it and drop it. You got to catch the ball, and you got to seal that victory when you can. The 49ers couldn't put the Rams away last time they played, and they got to find a way to do that this time, whether it's getting a turnover, making a big play, making a stop, not allowing a big return, name it. The 49ers got to be able to close the door. And they came off a game they closed the door against the Bears. Now the Bears aren't as good as the Rams, but they played 4 good quarters of football. They played great on offense. They went down and scored 3 and out, went down and scored again, and so it was really good to see the 49ers start to play like that. And when you talk about pressuring Stafford, giving him fewer places to throw it, I think the good news on the injury report for the 49ers on the defensive side of the ball is that Nick Bosa is not already listed out. He's questionable. Dre Greenlaw, we might get a chance to see Dre Greenlaw. He's listed at questionable for the first time this year. He got in a full practice, not limited on Wednesday. And so that's a huge sign. Nick Bosa's practice hasn't been practicing all the last few weeks, and he was not practicing Monday and Tuesday. Limited session. He's listed as limited and questionable after Wednesday's practice. So if you can get Bosa out there, and you can get Greenlaw, who just plays like a maniac, even if he's not out there for a full number of snaps. We saw what the shot in the arm Talanoa Hufanga gave the 49ers last week, just being out there, and he kind of jumped in and out of the lineup. He was on a little bit of a pitch count, but it felt different the way he moves around and the way he flies around the field. And Dre Greenlaw is another one of those guys. So if Greenlaw and Nick Bosa are out there playing, I do start to like the 49ers chances a lot better, making things a little bit more difficult on that passing game and the running game for the Los Angeles Rams. Next, let's paint some pictures. Let's get artistic and paint the paths to victory, what it looks like with the Rams win, what it looks like with the 49ers win Thursday night football. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers and Locked On Rams brought to you by Built Rewards. If you're a renter, listen up, because this is a total game changer. Thanks to Built, you can now earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks, and it's completely free to join. Earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending. And look, you're already paying rent, so why not earn some rewards on it? Redeem points for flights, hotel stays, and even future rent payments. With over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in their program, the possibilities are endless. Access unique experiences that are exclusive to Built Reward members, and Built makes it so easy to turn rent into rewards. If you're already paying rent, why not make it work for you? So start earning points on your rent and join Built.com. That is join Built, JoinBilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards on your rent today. All right, Travis, you can start. I don't know if you have any predictions that you want to give us. If you want to save that for, actually, there's no Friday episode. The short week's already messing with my mind. This is our last podcast before the game, and then we'll go live with our listeners post game. If you want to put your name on the line and your reputation on the line with a prediction here, Niners are favored by 3 in this one. And paint the picture of what the game looks like with a Rams win, whether you think they're going to win or not.
Yeah, I'll give you this prediction, guys. And I think if this comes down to a field goal, the Rams are in big trouble. This has been something that they've oddly been able to avoid for a few weeks now. They don't have anybody that can make a kick. They've really struggled with this. This goes back to a couple of misses in New England when they went up there and won. And since then, they've really just avoided using Josh Carty in as many situations as you possibly can. The last time we saw him kick was in that last PAT after the Puka Nacua screen touchdown, and it was awful. Now, it wasn't a very good hold, but the whole operation for the Rams kicking team is really, really rough right now. I think it's affecting the way that Sean McVay calls plays. I think it's affecting the decision-making as far as when they go, when they don't go. So if this comes down to you need to try a field goal at the end of the game, I do not like the Rams' chances because that has not been good at all. I think the Rams, if they play – they don't have to play as well as they did at Buffalo. That was the proverbial no-hitter, right? That you needed to do everything right to beat a team like that. I think this just needs to be a really good performance. I think if you block it up, I think they're going to be pretty good. I think if they can put the ball in Brock Purdy's hands to try to win the game, if they can get after him like we started with talking about with Jared Verse, that's a very good sign. The more he passes, the more I like the Rams' chances. But I really do think it comes down to kicking, and I think it comes down to the 5 guys. If they can play even remotely close to what they did a week ago, they're in pretty good shape. The Rams feel like they finally hit their stride. They finally found that game they've been looking for all season long, and hopefully they can double up on it.
Path to victory, Croc. What's a 49ers win look like on Thursday?
I think the 49ers have to be better on special teams. When you go back to the 49ers' first matchup against the Los Angeles Rams, I think special teams is kind of, there's a lot of things we could point to. Playing Ronnie Bell, out there, a guy who's no longer on the 49ers, big drop that he had. But special teams, that was a huge factor. And, you look at that punt return towards the end of the game where it set the Rams up in really good field position to beat the 49ers. I think 49ers, their special teams unit has been very up and down. And I think if you ask the fans, it'd be a lot more down than up throughout this season. So can the 49ers just be good? Can your field goal kicker be good? Because when I go back to that game, Jake Moody, he missed the kick in that first game. We're talking a lot about the Rams kicker right now. He was 100% on field goals and extra points. So special teams for the 49ers, you definitely have to be much better.
Yeah, when Travis, when you started talking about the special teams in the kicking game, I thought you were going to go the other way because the 49ers have been, I think, ranked 32nd in the league on special teams. So, but Moody's leg is healthy, and I feel okay about Moody at least hitting a kick if that's all it takes. But man, touch and go on special teams it's an epidemic around the league. I feel like every host I've talked to this year has been like, man, special teams is terrible. And it's like, okay, who's going to have the worst special teams this week?
Yeah, it could be a battle of whose is just slightly less bad than actually who is good. Let me ask you guys this before we call it a crossover. What is Debo speaking up, tweeting, deleting tweets? Everybody read what they read. Does that mean, do they try to feed him more? Because the reason I ask is this. The last time the Rams played an opponent who had an unhappy wide receiver who was talking about being unhappy the week before was Marvin Harrison Jr., who went and absolutely murdered the Rams the next day that they played. Is there any connectivity do the Niners try to get Debo the ball more because he spoke up, or are they just going to play it straight up, and if he gets it, he gets it. If he doesn't, he doesn't?
We've seen so far 49ers, and not even just the receivers bringing it up, but just people bringing it up. Ricky Pearsall, obviously, first round draft pick for the 49ers. He's kind of just been absent over the last few games, and he went 3 games without a catch. Finally got one in this last game. But even with him coming up and people saying, oh, he needs to get the ball more, and Kyle and Brock Purdy talking about, hey, we just got to do a better job of getting him the rock. He had 1 catch. So Debo Samuel, he can say, give me the ball, but the 49ers are going to run their offense. And Debo has been the guy in years past that they did look to get the ball in his hands a bunch of different ways. This year, they have, but his touches just aren't amounting to what they have before. That's been a big topic for us this week. He talks about getting more opportunities, getting more catches. Well, he had 8 touches in the game and didn't do a whole lot with it. So we'll see if they bump that number up. Debo Samuel on any given day can have a big game, but it's just been something that's been very inconsistent throughout this season. Hasn't been a great year for Debo. Yeah,
and to me, look, I'm all about an angry Debo Samuel. So whatever he has to do to stack himself up, if he's got a little extra juice, and he's been good against the Rams throughout his career, he's made some big catch and runs. But it's not about the number of touches. He gets a big chunk of the offense, and the wide back stuff out of the backfield just has not really been there for him this year. 2 something yards per carry hasn't been great. But if he can break a few plays, I mean, if you told me that Debo goes crazy in this game, I really love the 49ers chances because he hasn't been there. His yak is down. The 49ers team yak is down. His yards per route run is down. He's not been quite the same guy, and he's been just kind of like one broken tackle, one little burst, one move here away from breaking some of those big plays. If he can find a way to break some big plays in this game, that'd be phenomenal. So I hope he's super pissed off, and I hope he's out there to do everything he can to wreak havoc on the Rams defense, because they need that. They need some bigger plays on offense, and Debo's not been there making those big plays this year, and he's gonna have to do it on probably the same amount of touches as he always gets, because I don't know how there's more there, because Kittle already needs more. And Jennings has been the 49ers best wide receiver, 3rd and Juwan. So when it's 3rd down and 9, look for number 15 more than you look for number 1. And if Debo is able to rip off some big plays, it's more about his production per touch than how many touches he gets. That said, I have no idea. This is one of the tough, when you watch these teams so many times and you still don't know what to expect, that's what blows me away in this league sometimes. It could be a Niners blowout. It could be a Rams blowout. It could come down to a last second special teams play. I have no idea. So for that reason, I feel like whoever's getting the points, if you're betting in Vegas, if you're in Las Vegas, I was like, okay, if you're getting points at the Rams, that's probably the way I would lean. Niners are favored by 3 in this one. It's hard to say the Niners should be favored against teams, especially how good the Rams looked last week, but the Niners did look pretty good too. I have no idea what to expect. It's going to be fun. And you talked about the playoffs starting in week 18 for the Rams. according to Juwan Jennings, who I just mentioned, he talked about last week already against the Bears was a playoff game.
Yeah.
They have to win every single game. If the Rams win this, the Niners are out. So do they have a little extra at home Thursday night prime time? Do they have something? Do they have an answer for the Rams, or are they going to be sent packing?
Yeah, the Rams have a chance to do something that they have not been able to do. I think it's 7 years. It's beat them twice in 1 year. It's the one coach that when Sean McVay goes up against Kyle Shanahan, that it just seems like Shanahan kind of is a half a step ahead of him a lot of the time. And I've never said that about Sean McVay with any other coach, but it does seem like when the Niners and the Rams play, the Rams are they're always the ones trying to catch up as opposed to the ones that are kind of dictating the terms. So for Rams fans, you hope that flip-flops, but I'm with you, Brian. This one feels like a lot of these Rams-Niner games where who the heck knows, maybe whoever makes one fewer mistake or one bigger play probably wins the game.
Yeah, we'll say the McVay side of that coaching tree, that whole tree is doing a lot better than the Shanahan side of the coaching tree this season for whatever reason,
Yeah, they got a few.
So we'll see if that continues in week 15. Niners, Rams, a whole lot of fun. Thanks everybody for making Locked On Rams and Locked On 49ers your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you all subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Back post game right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.